in that revolt.
Yeah, but you still
and
had...
they were made up of
Yeah,
people.
fine.
And
But you had
those
people
Arabs,
rebelling.
Those Arabs were mainly Muslim. And then furthermore...
So it doesn't matter, they were slaves and they rebelled. They didn't like being slaves.
They rebelled because of the treatment that they were receiving.
Exactly, because slaves are treated badly.
Why would the Muslims then
Content over everything!
join them if they didn't believe that their treatment was wrong?
First of all, not all of them were Muslims. You're assuming
Not
that
all of
every
the-
single Bantu who rebelled
No,
was a Muslim.
no. I didn't say the Bantu. I said the Arabs that joined the fight.
I'm talking about the Bantus who rebelled in the Zanj rebellion in the 10th century.
Yeah.
Most of them had been turned into eunuchs. They've been kidnapped from their homeland in East Africa, and they rebelled because they were being treated badly. And they rebelled for such a long time that they destabilized the Abbasid Caliphate.
Yeah.
So this idea that they were being treated fairly because they were
No. Don't put words in my mouth. Don't put words in my mouth. I didn't say treated fairly, but I'm saying there's a significant difference.
Just to simplify it, slavery in the Arab world and in Europe and in America is bad.
Absolutely. But what my original sentiment was, the difference in between slavery within the Arab world and slavery between the transatlantic was it was thoroughly different. In the sense that they had slave owners, or slaves in particular, who were able to become rulers. That says to me that there was a degree of freedom and a degree of making your way up the chain. So wait, let me finish. Can you give me can you say the same for the transatlantic slave trade?
Well, the strange thing about the transatlantic slave trade in America, which a lot of people don't want to talk about, and I know, because you had free men of color.
Yeah, you have free men of color.
Who actually went on to become slave owners
Yeah,
and
of course.
wealthy people. Yeah.
No, black people who had slaves in America.
Yeah.
No one
I thought that was just a myth.
But that's the thing.
No, that shows good and bad in every society.
Exactly.
That shows.
Absolutely.
So
Like in the South.
In the South.
Yeah, because they thought it's profitable
But
and
when
they
the
were
slave-
greedy, they did it.
When it ended, the Jim Crow laws, were they bound by those Jim Crow laws?
Well,
Like
there
the
was a lot of
segregation?
free blacks as well who were then taken and imprisoned as well and sold into slavery. So the racial element still existed quite thoroughly.
There were, like,
But no, they were
was it
blacks.
the 13th Amendment that abolished slavery?
Yeah, but they carried on practicing slavery still.
Yeah, I don't remember. It was one of the amendments.
I think it was
the
1865, the Emancipation Proclamation, 13th Amendment. But they still practiced it
Yeah,
till
of
like the
course.
1960s.
Of course.
Or whatever.
I still want to understand how the Arab slave trade is somehow less of a problem than, say, the Atlantic slave trade.
So again, this is what I'm going to ask you. Don't put words in my mouth.
No, okay.
I'm going to ask you, where did I say it's less of a
Okay,
problem?
please repeat what you said. I
I
want to
said
fully understand.
when people talk about it, they overblow it. They tell me that it was 10 times worse. I look at the numbers. The Arab slave trade lasted seven or so hundred years in comparison to the transatlantic. Transatlantic was 300 to 400 years. In the same space of time, or in the space of time, the disparity, they both took the same amount of slaves. Meaning that the transatlantic were doing it at a much higher rate during the 400 years.
How many years did you say the Arab slave trade lasted for again?
7 or so hundred years.
So you don't consider what's going on in Sudan, Mauritania, Libya, parts of the Middle East as part of the slave trade?
And I'll ask you again, in particular, when we're talking about those areas in particular, especially now, because they do make a mention that these areas are still slightly involved in slavery or the kind of like selling of
Not
chattels.
slightly,
slavery
it's
and
part of
chattels.
the culture.
But most of these are in where? Rebel held.
Mauritania is not a rebel held.
I'm talking about the other places as well.
Which places?
The other
Sudan is not a rebel held.
Libya is the recent one.
Okay, we
Libya is the
mentioned
recent one that I know about.
Mauritania, Sudan.
Yeah. So what kind of slavery are we talking about? Are we talking about free labor slavery? Are we talking about chattel slavery? Are we talking about slavery where you can build up and marry into the master's house? What kind of slavery are we talking about?
We're talking about slavery where you were kidnapped from your homeland and you were bought and sold like cattle. And you have no rights at all. This is what happens in Sudan when the militia groups called the Janjaweed kidnap people of the Dinka and they are sold into slavery.
Good. And what are we trying to establish? Are we trying to establish that slavery as a concept is just wrong?
No, I'm saying the point that I'm mentioning. The point that I'm mentioning now is you were very specific in saying that the Arab slave trade lasted for, I think you said 700 years.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, but it still continues and exists now. And I mentioned those countries.
Yeah, go on.
I mean, among the last states that have
2007,
Saudi Arabia and Yemen,
2007,
from pressure from Britain. So it's like And it's like when you go to the Middle East, like, and I've seen videos, and I think I saw a video of in Iraq, and this dude was like saying, oh, he was inspired by Martin Luther King, so black people will be treated with respect in Iraq. And the blatant, like, they just call them, they're just so disrespectful to black people. And in Israel, like, Israel isn't off the hook. Like, yeah, racism is like heavy over there. Whilst
Absolutely.
Racism happens in Britain, but it's policed. It's like if you know, if a white guy says that, he'll get in trouble. He'll be like exposed and like, oh no, you're a bigot. Fuck off.
So I'll quickly address that. Do you mind if I address that quickly?
Yeah, you still haven't addressed mine about the Arab slave trade.
What question?
It's still going on, so it hasn't actually ended.
But you haven't actually given me a specific as to what kind of slavery it is.
I've told you where people are kidnapped from their homeland and they're bought and sold like cattle. And I gave you an example of a country, Sudan. And I gave you an example, of the tribe that it happens to, the Dinka, and there's another tribe called the Nuer. So,
and I'll ask you, what are the infrastructures like in Sudan?
In what sense? You mean economically? You mean militarily?
Infrastructure, economically, militarily. We're talking about police enforcement, etc. Healthcare. What are the infrastructures like?
It's a sovereign state, and under the current government, which some claim is a very pro-Islamic government, which shouldn't really matter anyway, it is a stable government, stable country.
Yeah? Do you agree?
Sudan, yeah.
I'd have to disagree.
But how does that deal with the fact that slavery still exists? It never ended. You gave a date, 700 years or something.
Yeah.
And I'm saying the Arab slave trade still exists, and I've given examples of countries, Mauritania, Sudan, we mentioned Libya, which you said is rebel-held, but then I said Sudan and Mauritania.
Of course.
They're not rebel-held, and these are stable governments and still implementing slavery.
We can talk about how slavery still goes on now, and I'm going to answer your question in a second. Just need to get the context of this question. So when we talk about slavery, are we just talking about the slavery of the African people, or are we talking about the fact that there's child trafficking going on, human trafficking going on, and male economic kind of like situations where that force people into different parts of the world? That's why I asked you, what kind of slavery are you talking about? So when we're talking about slavery in particular, let's encompass it as a whole. Don't just put a certain group of people into it. So when we talk about, in particular, the people who are being trafficked, why are they being trafficked?
They're being kidnapped from their homeland. Because for a number of reasons. One of them is that they're not Muslims.
Disagree?
Well, you're being called a kafir and you're being put into Quranic schools and being forced to become a Muslim, and they're chaining a Quran. So the Nuer and the Dinka people, for the most part, the structure of Sudan, the most people in the north are Muslims. The southern part, the Nuer and the Dinka, they're either Christians or they have their own traditional spiritual beliefs.
Of course, yeah.
So the majority of the people who are the slave traders, who are kidnapping them, are Muslims or claiming to be Muslims, and the majority of the people who are being kidnapped are not Muslims. This was what led to a war which lasted for more than 20 years, and you now have the Republic of Southern Sudan. So the people who are being kidnapped are belonging to two tribes, as I mentioned earlier, Nuer, Dinka, and a couple of other tribes. Most of them are not Muslims, they're not they're Christians or maybe spiritualists as well. But their freedoms have been denied.
Of course, yeah.
They're being bought and sold. Children, you mentioned child trafficking. That's part of it. Women are being used as well, men.
Absolutely.
So people are being kidnapped. They have no rights. That's the kind of slavery I'm talking about.
But when we're talking about slavery, again, are you just limiting it to that part of the world, or do you acknowledge that slavery is affecting everywhere in the world? Because we have European children now who is being kidnapped.
No, but we are talking specifically about the Arab slave trade.
We are.
You said that the Arab slave trade lasted for 700
years.
Say
something. No, but slavery within the Middle East as itself has always lasted since the dawn of people just started writing things. I don't really think it's fair to say Arab slavery. I've heard Middle Eastern slavery.
I just want to dispel this myth that it's just solely isolated to the Middle East or any African countries in particular, and us as Western society are not things. I want to ask you. So when you again distinguish between the slavery of the people of the Sudanese people, are you denying the fact? And I'm not saying that you're denying the fact, but are you denying the fact that there are children here who are shipped elsewhere around the world, not just to Middle Eastern countries, not just African countries, but to Western countries as well, for the favour of certain people who are predominantly rich people?
But that's not what we're talking about.
That's exactly what we're talking about, because you were talking about slavery, and
I was responding to what you said.
What did I say?
You said that the Arab slave trade lasted for 700 years.
Yeah, 700 or so 100.
And then I asked specifically, what about the slavery that's still going on now? Would you consider that still part of the Arab state?
Well, I'll ask you again. When I said 700 years, I meant on an official sense. Can you give me a place on an official sense, meaning that the country doesn't condone it, the country doesn't sanction it, the country doesn't have it in its legislation that you should be able to enslave anyone. So I'll ask you, which countries are you talking about that have this in their law, in their practice, and in their culture?
I gave you two examples. I gave you Mauritania.
You'd have to give me the law.
And I've given you Sudan. So those are two countries.
So which law? Which law ruling?
Slavery doesn't exist in Sudan.
Wait. No. Please. No.
So the new era and the Dinka from the south of Africa.
He's Sudanese. He's questioning a Sudanese guy. Can I quickly?
I'm speaking to a Sudanese man who says that slavery has never existed in Sudan.
But this is the thing, though. When I ask you what slavery are you talking about, you fail to answer that, and I'm asking you in particular. What legal sense are you talking about? I asked you.
You need to be more specific with your question, because I keep giving you answers, but you keep asking the question again. So what do you mean by that question?
When I asked you, right, there were laws given, right, to prohibit slavery, right, by certain councils and certain boards. Most countries had to abide by that. Arab countries, as we just seen, as of 2007, basically got rid of slavery as a practice law, like on any official grounds. So I'm asking you, because you seem to be taking very specific examples of underground organized criminal networks and applying it to things. So I'm asking you, where in the official sense, in Sudan, right, do you see official authorities taking groups of people and putting them into slave practice?
Where in Sudan?
Yeah. Where's the law for it? Where's the law? Yeah. Where's the law and the infrastructure that supplies it?
Well, we're going to have to take time out and start searching.
Sarah's channeling his energy into man. What's your name again, brother?
Preston.
Yeah. I think Sarah's channeling his energy into you so you can argue on his behalf.
Don't blame him. I'm surprised I've got a Sudanese saying slavery didn't exist in Sudan.
That's weird, though. You have someone who's from Sudan actually saying that there's no slaves in Sudan, yet he doesn't believe it.
I believe it's good.
I don't understand.
I agree.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I believe it's not.
Sarah, come down and debate.
He's saying back they're arguing against the evidence.
No. I'm asking them for any legal practice or on any official grounds, any place that actually sanctions slavery. Because you have to prove that it exists on the infrastructure level. If you don't, then that goes into a different paradigm of organized crime. When we're talking about organized crime, we need to talk about the whole specific of organized crime. You cannot use organized crime to represent the whole nation or a whole religion, for that matter.
What to put in particular before when we're talking about organized crime?
Huh? We're talking about like the trafficking of people, whether it's sexual, whether it's labor.
Before you said when we're talking about organized crime, you forgot to put in particular.
I didn't realize that. You know when you have something you say, or like you know when you get like people from Essex and they're like, and they don't realize how many times they say it. Like it's weird.
They're hating on Rajiv and Betty.
Because we don't hate Islam. That's it. It's as simple as that. We don't hate Islam.
But this discussion is not about Islam.
It's not. Not this discussion. I'm talking about Sarah. I'm talking about Sarah and his friends. Not yourself. Just to clear this up, we're waiting for any official kind of like rulings or legal documents or any kind of like laws in any countries that allow slavery or encourage slavery or facilitate slavery. It will never happen.
Sorry, your white master.
This one.
I don't even know him, so I don't even know why he's talking that much. Like, I've never met him. Like,
but he's been saying other people. Saying a lot. A lot of these questions have been coming from other people still.
This is the longest Google ever.
Yeah, I think someone should.
Do you know what, personally? If you can't find the facts now, that's cool. We can come back next week. We'll talk about this. You can come back with like more substantiated thing. I'll look myself more into the Sudanese issue because I'm clearly not
Mauritania.
Yeah, because I'm clearly not educated on it. But for me personally, I'm talking about on the official level. So we'll come back next week, reconvene, and then we'll talk about it then. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's a complex issue. I don't really break slavery at all. But when we're talking about the Arab slave trade, I did have a look into it, and they took, I think it's 12 million, which is still terrible, and the transatlantic took 12 as well. But I think they originally took 20, but most of those died across as well, and then some of them went to Europe, etc. But it's the same with I think there's this whole myth about the castration and stuff, and they were practicing that on Arabs before they actually even got to what do you call it, black slavery in particular. So I was searching for the castration practice of black African males. But I couldn't find that many examples. They're very isolated. But then I started thinking about it in an economical sense. Slaves were expensive. They weren't something that you just picked up. They were expensive. You go to the slave market and you would buy a slave for a reason. You would give a slave to someone as a gift. They cost money. So for you to just be castrating them, economically, that's not sound. Because you're just killing property and you're killing value. I sound fucked up about saying this, but when we talk about this, I try to take a quite nuanced view. So even this idea of like the Arabs castrating the black African male, it's blown up.
But there was a reason, there was a specific reason most of them did that.
No, absolutely.
It had to do with them not wanting the black slaves to, in their fare, reproduce with the Arab women who were light skinned.
I'll give you this example though. I absolutely agree, and I think there's definitely an insecurity when it comes to black men in particular being with any form of woman that is non-black. And there's been so many laws and segregations to be put against the idea of any black man even laying a hand or looking in the direction. We had Emmett Till, who was slaughtered because of it, right? But the only thing that I have to point out is that there are definitely examples of that. And it's the same with the transatlantic slavery as well. There was castration in transatlantic slavery as well, quite thoroughly. And they actually put laws and rulings to stop us from being able to intermarry and whatever, etc. Right? Yeah. But we also have depictions from the Arab world, right? I can't remember what the book is in particular, and they're talking about the sexuality of the black male, and they're talking about it specifically with the Arab woman, and they aren't talking about it in a degrading sense. They're talking about it in an admirable sense, right? That's not again. I can't use that. I cannot use that to generalize to all Arabs. I'll find the book for you, and then I'll later show you. No. I think it's called the Arabian Nights or something like that. I can't remember.
1001 Arabian Nights.
Something like that. Something like that.
The fairy tale book.
I'll find out.
With Sinbad.
I will find out. I'll find out. But can we honestly name anything on the transatlantic side that was